Weakening effect of nostalgia. Really important to understand, okay? Now that we know what nostalgia is, we got a good grasp on that. We need to see the weakening effect of it. Because you still might think it's not a big deal. Nostalgia, who cares? Yeah. Well, we'll see. Because that wasn't the attitude all through history. In fact, they talked about it a lot more in history. Nostalgia weakening soldiers. The term was coined in 1688 by Johannes Hofer in his Basel dissertation. Hofer introduced nostalgia or mal du pays homesickness for the condition also known as mal du Swiss illness because of its frequent occurrence in Swiss mercenaries who in the plains of Switzerland were pining for their landscapes. Symptoms were also thought to include fainting, high fever, and death. Sounds pretty crazy. But that it was such a problem back then with the Swiss mercenaries that they had to come up with these terms to describe it. English homesickness is a loan translation of nostalgia. Sir Joseph Banks used the word in his journal during the first voyage of Captain Cook on September 3rd, 1770. He stated that the sailors were now pretty far gone with the longing for home, which the physicians have gone so far as to esteem a disease under the name of nostalgia. Called nostalgia a disease. Okay, so this wasn't just with the Swiss, right? This talks about the English. Okay? Now, but his journal was not published in his lifetime. Cases resulting in death were known, and soldiers were sometimes successfully treated by being discharged and sent home. Receiving a diagnosis was, however, generally regarded as an insult. Right? It's kind of embarrassing. Oh, you got a case of nostalgia? But anyways, so we see that in Swiss soldiers, talking about sailors, different groups of men that had debilitating effects from nostalgia. They wanted to go back home so bad. And you know what it was doing? It was hindering their present work. Whether it was to be at war or to be out on the sea, to do your work as a sailor, it was hindering what they're supposed to be doing right now. It was a weakening effect of nostalgia. In the 18th century, scientists were looking for a locus of nostalgia, a nostalgic bone. Pretty funny. But that's how crazy this was. You might say, oh, that's ridiculous. But it was such a problem that they're just, trying to come up with whatever they could to figure this out. By the 1850s, nostalgia was losing its status as a particular disease and coming to be seen rather as a symptom or stage of a pathological process. It was considered as a form of melancholia and a predisposing condition among suicides to something that was occurring in people before suicide, nostalgia. Nostalgia was, however, still diagnosed among soldiers as late as the American Civil War. Even that late, all the way into the 1860s, nostalgia was being diagnosed in soldiers. By the 1870s, interest in nostalgia as a medical category had almost completely vanished. Now, my opinion is that's kind of shady. It's kind of suspicious. Because to me, it looks like they saw a way to utilize nostalgia as a tool of control, and I will show you that. More evidence of that in a little bit. So, stop diagnosing people with that. Nostalgia was still being recognized in both the First and Second World Wars, especially by the American Armed Forces. Great lengths were taken to study and understand the condition to stem the tide of troops leaving the front in droves. See the BBC documentary Century of Self. I don't endorse everything about that documentary, but there is some good stuff in there, especially about Edward Bernays and his tactics of manipulation through advertising. He had a book called Propaganda. But anyways, so as you can see, all through history, in different countries, nostalgia, especially when it comes to the military with soldiers, they said that nostalgia had a weakening effect on the soldiers over and over again. They had such an intense homesickness that it interfered with their ability to fight, to do their duties as a soldier in the war. And we're going to see how that applies to us in modern day times and to the Christians. Nostalgia is triggered by something reminding an individual of an event or item from their past. The resulting emotion can vary from happiness to sorrow. The term feeling nostalgic is more commonly used to describe pleasurable emotions associated with and or a longing to go back to a particular period of time. Just want to go back to the past. If I could just go back to that period of time, I'd be happy. That's what they think. Now, here's what's interesting. So we're going to talk in a second about an example of something that triggers nostalgia. But just think about that concept in general, that nostalgia weakened the soldiers. And now we're going to look at one thing that was actually cited as an example of something that triggered nostalgia. And the reason I want to focus on this so much is this applies directly to us, especially the times that we live in right now, more than ever. Nostalgia triggering music, weakening soldiers. Take a look at this. First of all, let's get a definition of this. Probably not going to pronounce this right, but it's from the Swiss. Kureihen. A Ranz des Vaches, or Kureihen, is a simple melody traditionally played on the horn by the Swiss alpine herdsmen as they drove their cattle to and from the pasture, okay? So when they were out on the pasture taking care of their animals, they had a melody that they used to play in Switzerland. And they played it on a horn. And this song, that's what it's talking about when it talks about this song. Now listen to this. Swiss nostalgia was linked to the singing of Kureihen, what I just described. Swiss nostalgia was linked to the singing of that music, which were forbidden to Swiss mercenaries because they led to nostalgia to the point of desertion, illness, or death. Think about this. This might sound crazy to us today, but it was a serious thing back then. It was so bad that they weren't even allowed to play and sing that melody because the soldiers wouldn't even want to fight anymore. That's how dangerous the music was to them, the nostalgia triggering music. The 1767 Dictionnaire de Musique by Jean-Jacques Rousseau claims that Swiss mercenaries were threatened with severe punishment to prevent them from singing their Swiss songs. That's how bad it was. You can't even do those songs, or we will punish you. Back in the 1700s. Okay? Nostalgic music was forbidden because of the weakening effect it had on soldiers. Now, so we've documented that from history. Now I want to apply it to now. The things most often mentioned in relation to nostalgia are related to an entertainment, like movies and music. Isn't that what everyone talks about today? Things that make people feel the most nostalgic today. You might say something like, well, I saw a picture, I went to a place, a certain smell triggered something. But even more than those are movies and music. Old movies, old music. And they weaken you, just like it weakens the Swiss soldiers. These things did not reflect a much better past, but instead were an escape from reality. Okay, I'm going to really dive into this. Let's read that again. The music and movies from the past, you're like, oh, I want to go back to that, I want to go back to that. These things did not reflect a much better past, but instead were an escape from reality. Think about it. Those movies and music that you say were so great from the past, that was an escape. When you are complaining about how the woke are ruining all the music and the movies, that's what people say. You are longing for higher quality escapes from reality. That's technically what you're saying. Oh, the past was better, the past was better. You know, people say that all the time about especially, you could say Gen X, millennials. They say, oh, the music and the movies was so much better back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. The music and the movies was better. The music and the movies was better. That's what they say all the time. As if that reflected a better all-around circumstance. But the reality of it was there were a lot of bad things going on at those times as well. And those movies and music were an escape from reality. That's what they were. So your fond memories of the past are just about higher quality escapes. You might say, oh, well, there were other things that were good. Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. There were some things good. You could say sometimes there was good, economic circumstances. But then you could say it would go up and down. There was a stock market crash in 1987. There was the dot-com bubble. Right? Then there's a real estate crash in 2006, 7, and 8. Ups and downs. That was really devastating for a lot of people. So you could say, oh, those things are better back then, but there were a lot of other bad things going on back then. Right? Because all the music was so much better then. Well, guess what? A lot of school shootings started in 1999. Right? Things like that. Meanwhile, they're pumping out all this great music, man, all these great movies. But you were still escaping. It's just higher quality. Better writing, better directing, better acting, better special effects and makeup, whatever it is. It's still all an escape. And what I'm going to show you, especially in the future, is there were some very evil, sinister things in all those pieces of entertainment from the past that you most likely had no clue of. Went right under your radar, right under your nose. You didn't even know what was being pumped into your head. So when you're saying they're ruining these things, you're saying you're longing for higher quality escapes. That's what you're saying when you long for these things from the past, when you feel that nostalgia. Got a verse for you, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. Thou therefore endure hardness, because there's going to be a lot of hard times, right? Things that happen, ugly realities. Bible says endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No man that warreth, that goes to war, entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier. Who has chosen you to be a soldier? God. What does he say? If you're a good soldier of Jesus Christ, you need to endure hardness. You need to not be entangled with the affairs of this life. Well, what's going to do that to you? Nostalgia. Nostalgia is going to weaken you, get you entangled with the affairs of this life. It's going to make it so you will not be able to endure hardness, just like those Swiss soldiers that wanted to abandon the war. They wanted to go back home. That's you. That's you. When you trigger those feelings of nostalgia with the old music, the old movies, you know what it's doing to you? Weakening you as a soldier for Jesus Christ. Making you not want to endure hardness, not wanting to war a good warfare and fight the good fight of faith. It's making you want to abandon the battlefield and just go to a time in the past when you think it was so much better and things were just so much nicer, instead of all these awful things that are going on now. And you're trying to abandon the battlefield, to desert this and go to the past, this war. No. The Bible says, endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. And to help you to do that, you got to cut out the nostalgia. We'll talk about that a lot more, but I just want you to see the weakening effect had on those soldiers. It has it on you as a soldier of Jesus Christ. Not only does nostalgia weaken you, but it can weaken others as well. Another danger. If you can't let go of nostalgia, you are fearful and faint-hearted about facing present ugly realities. That's just the facts. Okay? I'm not being mean. I'm just stating the facts. If you can't let it go, you had a hard time letting it go, you are being fearful, you are being faint-hearted, because you're saying, I don't want to face what's in front of me and all the ugly realities right now. I want to escape to the past through these nostalgic things. This attitude can spread to others. That's why this rule was implemented for going out to battle. In the Bible, check this out. Here is a rule that was given about soldiers going out to battle. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 8 in the Bible. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, what man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart. Wow. You know, what did we read earlier about the Swiss soldiers? When they were affected by that nostalgia, they just wanted to go home. They wanted to abandon the battlefield and go home. And here's a rule protecting from that. Before they even go out to battle, God gives this commandment here in the rules in Deuteronomy. Anybody that's fearful and faint-hearted now, it says just go and return home. Don't even go out on the battlefield, because if you do, you're going to make your brethren's heart faint as well. It's going to infect other people. And we don't need to lower everyone's morale. We can't be having that. So anyone feels that way, you need to go home and get out of here, because war is not for you. Get off the battlefield. Go home. And guess what? You think that doesn't apply today to the spiritual war that we're in? Not against flesh and blood. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's the war that we're engaged in. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. That's the war, the spiritual war. Now, if you want to be a good soldier to fight in that war, you can't be fearful and faint-hearted. It's going to affect your brethren. And you're going to be fearful and faint-hearted if you're triggering nostalgia with these things like the music and the movies or whatever it is that's weakening you, making you faint-hearted. It's going to make you want to abandon the battlefield, the spiritual battlefield, the spiritual war. And you will not have victory if you're doing that. And then even worse, you're going to be casting a stumbling block in front of your brethren to make it so they're not having victory as well. So it's very serious. You need to face this. You need to confront it. Don't shy away from it. Deal with it.